I want to raise the bar every single time I step in there. And I said it all week.
Yeah.
That's what I'm all about. And I'm going to show you that.
Right.
And that's exactly what I showed.
To be the best, you got to beat the best. And the best is blessed. They can come after me, baby. Let's get it.
Alexander the Great Volkanovski, the pride of Hawaii, Max Holloway.
One of the most high-level fights of all time is finally getting a trilogy at UFC 276. The reigning featherweight champion Alexander the Great Volkanovski faces his predecessor, blessed Max Holloway, in an epic trilogy fight. While Volk won the first fight pretty decisively, the rematch was one of the most controversial title fights of all time. It was a fight of the highest caliber, but fans and pundits alike were split on who the winner was, with the judges giving Volk the nod.
Still!
With the stakes being as high as ever, this is definitely a matchup to look forward to, and we here at Athlete Central are here to tell you everything you need to know about it in this Ultimate Fight Breakdown.
The first fights.
The fighters first faced off at UFC 245, where Holloway was a moderate favorite to win the fight. Volk shocked everyone and outstruck Holloway in the first round. Max had a considerable size and reach advantage, but Volk countered that with a plethora of leg kicks. He landed 13 of them in the first round and really kept Max at his distance. Some thought that Max would be able to bounce back, but Volk landed even more leg kicks in the second, with 22. The third round was the best one for Alex as he outlanded Max 35-22.
Max fights best when he can switch stances.
The last two rounds were even more competitive, but Volk won both of them objectively. This fight showed people Volk's true ability, and Max had to make major adjustments for the rematch at UFC 251. The rematch was a lot more back and forth. Holloway started strongly by landing numerous brilliant combinations, including some nice kicks to Volk's head and body. The first two rounds were pretty decisive in favor of Max.
Oh, but that's an amazing combination.
But the tide started to turn in the middle of the third round. While Max was winning at the start of the round, Alex started to utilize some grappling and pressured the Hawaiian against a fence, winning the second part of the round. The fourth and fifth rounds were pretty decisive. Volk outlanded Max heavily and started to have more success with his leg kicks again. The third round is where people were split between the two fighters, but it was one of the most elite fights of all time. Their technique was simply incredible, and both of them are going to be considered all-time greats by the time they're done with their careers.
Recent fights.
Let's start off with the current champ, Alexander Volkanovski. His first real test in the top echelon of the UFC was Chad Mendes, who was ranked number 5 at the time. Volkanovski showed that he deserved to be in this position just 5 fights into his UFC career and got an emphatic finish over Mendes, knocking him out in the second round.
Shawn Mendes, rip into the body, drops him.
This earned him a fight against one of the greatest featherweights of all time, the King of Rio, Jose Aldo. Aldo was on a 2-fight winning streak at the time and was number 1 in the rankings. Volkanovski won all 3 rounds in dominant fashion, solidifying his spot as the number 1 contender. Then came the fights against Max that we talked about, followed up by a title defense against Brian T. City Ortega in the most entertaining fight of his career. At one point in the fight, Volk was caught in an extremely deep guillotine but survived it, showing great heart and toughness. Volk won 4 out of the 5 rounds, and there were even calls for the ref to stop the fight in between the 4th and 5th because of the damage Ortega sustained. But T-City managed to carry on and even win the 5th round. This performance was epic for Volkanovski, and one where he cemented himself as one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the world. His last fight was against the Korean zombie, Chang Sung-jung. The fight was a beating from start to finish. Alex was piling on the pressure from the get-go, and Zombie had no reply to his striking. Volkanovski really started hurting Zombie in the 3rd round, and at the start of the 4th, the referee showed mercy and put a halt to the fight. Moving on to Max Holloway, who's had 7 fights since 2018. The first of those was against a common foe, Brian Ortega. Holloway was extraordinary in this fight. He set a record for the most strikes landed in UFC history, a record he would go on to break against Calvin Kattar. Max even had an iconic moment in the fight when he showed Ortega how to block punches. Here is the clip.
For every one that Ortega...
The doctor stopped the fight at the end of the 4th round because of the amount of damage Ortega had sustained. Bless then moved up to 155 pounds to take on Dustin Poirier for the interim lightweight title. It was one of the best fights of 2019, being extremely back and forth. Poirier's size advantage was evident, and the Diamond managed to win a 49-46 unanimous decision, thwarting Holloway's hopes for a double champ status. Max moved down to defend his 145 title in his next fight against Frankie Edgar. Holloway showed exceptional takedown defense in this fight, stuffing 14 out of Edgar's 15 takedown attempts. Holloway also impressed with his striking and claimed a unanimous decision victory over the veteran. Then came the bouts against Volkanovski, which we covered, followed up by an unbelievable performance against Calvin Kattar. This was the fight where Holloway broke 8 different records. Some of those were some he set against Ortega himself. Hold your breath. He landed the most significant strikes, the most distant strikes, the most strikes landed in a single round, the most attempted strikes, and 4 more records. It was a truly amazing performance that will go down in history. His most recent fight was against Yair Rodriguez, and even though it wasn't as dominant as the Kattar performance, it was a fan's delight. The fighters were trading strikes with no concern for their well-being. It was voted as the 3rd best fight of 2021, and for good reason. In the eyes of most fans and media, Yair won the 1st and the 5th rounds, while Max took the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th en route to a unanimous decision win.
All love to Yair. This guy's a beast. Viva Mexico!
Attributes.
Both men are in the prime of their careers, with Volkanovski being 33 and Holloway being 30. Even though Holloway has a size advantage being 5'11", 5 inches taller than Volk, who is 5'6", the Aussie's reach is 71 inches, which is 2 inches longer than Max's 69.
Striking.
Let's head into the statistical comparison. Given the fact that Holloway has had so many striking records, it's unsurprising that he has landed more significant strikes than Volk, 7.38 compared to 6.63. Volk's stats are impressive since he is not that far behind the fighter who is considered to be the best volume striker in MMA by many. When it comes to striking accuracy though, Volkanovski is far superior to Max. The Aussie's is 57%, which is 10% higher than Holloway's 47%. This shows that Volk is more efficient with his punches despite Max having the higher volume. Holloway also absorbs more strikes, up at 4.69 compared to Volk's 3.32. This comes because Max is not afraid to get in wars. He thrives in those situations. Alex is more calculated in his approach, which is what makes him such a great champion. Both fighters have a defense rate of 60%. When it comes to knockout power, the fighters are pretty equal. Volk has won 12 of his 24 bouts via KO/TKO, with 4 of those coming in the UFC. Max, on the other hand, has 10 knockouts of 23 wins, with 8 of those coming in the UFC.
Grappling.
In terms of grappling, Volkanovski engages in it way more. He averages 1.95 takedowns per 15 minutes, and Holloway is way down there with 0.31. His game is more centered around striking, while Volk is more well-rounded. When it comes to accuracy, Holloway is actually better, up at 66%, 30% higher than Volk's 36%. This is probably due to the small amount of takedowns attempted by Max, and Volk utilizing this tool more in his fights. Volk also uses stuffed takedowns to his advantage by pressuring his opponent on the fence to gain control time. In terms of takedown defense, Holloway yet again trumps Volk with a solid percentage of 84 compared to Volk's 70%. Although it's doubtful the Aussie is going to need to use his defense. Submission-wise, the fighters are pretty even. Max attempts 0.3 subs per 15 minutes, while Volk is down at 0.2. All 3 of Volk's submissions have been outside the UFC, and Max has finished with 2 guillotine chokes in the promotion.
Prediction.
This is a very unpredictable fight. We saw how close it was between these two the last time they fought, and it's all going to be about adjustments heading into the trilogy. One thing we noticed was Max's attitude after the 2nd round in the last fight. He was almost cocky in his demeanor and might have thought that the fight was in the bag, slowing down in the preceding rounds. Volk was able to take advantage of this and utilize his grappling while also having more and more success with his leg kicks. Holloway must be focused at all times and use his combinations to the best of his ability. His takedown defense is good, but he has to work hard in training camp in order to avoid or escape from the clinch situations that Volk thrives in. For Alex, it's about keeping the standard of his last 2 title defenses, always being on the front foot and throwing his beautiful combinations on Max. It's a question of whose game plan will succeed because quality-wise, these fighters are as equal as it gets. Will Volk prove he is without a doubt the best 145er on the planet, or will Max reclaim the featherweight throne? The bookmakers currently favor the defending champ Alex Volkanovski, pitting him as a strong -145 favorite, with Holloway being +125. This is the closest betting line in the trilogy. Holloway was a big favorite in the first fight, and Volk was a big favorite in the second. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Who would you guys put your money on? Drop your fight predictions in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe to never miss an Athlete Central video. Until next time.